Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hope for Animals Summit. Thanks for tuning in to this webinar series presented by In Defense of Animals and animal communicator Joan Ranquet. We're delighted to introduce you to speakers who will provide rays of hope for the animals during this time of political unrest. I'm your host, Lisa Levinson, Director of In Defense of Animals' Sustainable Activism Campaign, offering emotional resources for animal activists. And I'll let you know to please turn your microphones and webcams off for the duration of the webinar. And we will have a Q&A session after the speaker presentation. You can ask the speaker questions via the chat box, and that will be monitored by Sally Jenkins. So I'm super excited to introduce my co-host, Joan Ranquet, who will introduce you to our featured speaker. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And I want to go ahead and share who Dr. Cheryl is. And I'm going to read a bio, but I just want you to know that I live by this book, and you can see I've used it quite a bit. So to me, she's an amazing resource and a brilliant person. But Dr. Schwartz is an international educator, holistic veterinarian, and founding member of the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association. She's a graduate of Washington State Veterinary College. She has been in practice in California since 1978, interacting with cats, dogs, and horses. Dr. Schwartz uses integrative medicine for healing, acupuncture, acupressure, qigong, herbs, homeopathy, color, and sound therapies, as well as Western medicine when appropriate. She is the internationally known author of Four Paws Five Directions, a guide to Chinese medicine for cats and dogs, and natural healing for dogs and cats, A to Z. So welcome, Dr. Cheryl.
Oh, thank you so much, Joan. Beautiful introduction. I'm really, really happy to be here today. And I want you to know that I really liked your introduction, Lisa, because I feel that it's so important to have hope for the animals in these times of change and in this shift that's going on. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And I also wanted to thank you both for all of the work that you do. I think that it's really wonderful, and I really appreciate your doing a summit like this because the animals and us really need it. I'm going to share the screen right now, as you showed me how to do with my PowerPoint presentation. And we are going to just start. And I wanted to first start with talking about why I called it Now and Beyond Hope for the Animals. You know, all of us who are listening today, we're all animal people. And with that, we know that we trust our animals more than anything. We'll tell them things we'll never tell other humans, and we expect that they'll be there and support us. Well, it's also a place for us to support them. So holistic energy and healing, medicine, and love. It's really important. My goal today was to let you know that aside from all the science and technology that we have today, you as an animal advocate and healer, because you live with your animals, have a lot of power and a lot of energy and love to give your friends. Before we actually go into the presentation, I want to put a thank you out, a prayer to start this with. And I want to thank all the animals on the planet everywhere who are our teachers. They have been my teachers for up to 40 years and way before I went to vet school and went to medical school. All of the human teachers and advocates, and also to the Divine Mother, Earth, Father Sky. May this talk today shed light, love, and knowledge and abundance to all. Hope. So let's start. What is holistic energy medicine and healing, and why do we need it? Well, as Lisa said at the beginning, we're at a crossroads today. There's a lot of political unrest. There's a lot of resonance that's in the air. The vibration that's going around is about war and competition and who has things, who doesn't have things, let people in, let people out. And all of this sets up a vibration. And this vibration is through us and also to our animals. So what energy healing does, as you know, is it creates its own vibrational assistance, and it helps to reset the cells and organ systems. Energy medicine, energy healing includes acupuncture, qigong, acupressure, herbs, homeopathy, sound and color, Western medicine where it's appropriate, and anything else you can think about, thought, spiritual healing. All of this creates its own resonance, and every resonance creates a signature. And now, at times for our earth and our culture and civilization, we're at a turning point. An attunement is necessary, and we need to stop fighting and start loving. It reminds me of the 60s. I'm one of those people who was around in the 60s, actually. And this is another rebirth of that. We need to cooperate and support and use minimal physical resources. We want to set up an awareness and a management. We all live with technology. That's how we're doing this. This is a technological miracle. We're on a webinar. I'm in my house. You're in your house, or you're in your office, or on your cell phone. And technology helps this. It helps create a resonance. So it advances us, but at the same time, it restricts us. When you turn spell check on, what does that do? You're typing in things, and all of a sudden, your phone or your computer tells you what you're thinking. And it may not be what you're thinking, but it's a certain choice that you get. So the technology will give us choices, but it's their choices. We're all looking up on Google, what does this mean? What does that mean? Well, why should we believe that? That's what is technology giving us. But it doesn't mean that it's the only thing. With technology, it surrounds us in an electromagnetic field, and all of this super information leaves no breathing room. It can overwhelm sensitive individuals, and it affects us on the physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, and spiritual aspects. And the animals resonate with nature and humans. And the plants resonate with nature and humans. The climate resonates with humans. It resonates with itself. And the earth is at a status change. The nutrition in the soil, the environmental things, all of the systems are impacted. So it's important now to develop a deeper rapport with your animal friends. Is everybody hearing, or are there echoes or any kind of sound things going on?
Everything's fine.
Great. So let's lighten up. Everybody smile. With that smile, the ends, just so that you know, the ends of your mouth are part of the stomach meridian in Chinese medicine. So every time you smile, you give yourself additional energy, and it helps your digestion. So what we're going to do is, aside from smiling, is to try to slow down and breathe and center ourselves, because our vibration resonates with our animal friends. So using holistic energy approaches for our animals involves us, empowers us. And one of the big things I wanted to let you know today is that science is great, but don't forget about intuition. Intuitive feelings, gut feelings, what you know and resonate with your animal, these are all true. It doesn't matter what science says. Science is good as part of things. But remember and trust your intuition. And always remember to smile. So I wanted to give you some practical things to do. And I wanted to start with an exercise to empower us and to let you know how you can access your animal's energy fields. So this is your hand. Everybody's got a hand, or I assume everybody has a hand. And right in the middle of that hand is a point called Lao Gong. And Lao Gong, in the center of your palm, is part of the pericardium energy system in Chinese medicine. But it's used as an antenna for focusing. Just like you have a dish antenna on the side of your house to pick up the different things in your TV or in your computer, your hand can also access energy. It goes through you and out your hands, or comes in your hands and goes through you. So we can use this to help communicate with our animal friends just by being around them and moving our hands. So I'd like you to do an exercise with me. First, to breathe deeply. 3 breaths. And see if you can empty your mind of chatter. And I want you to create some warmth in your palms by rubbing them together. And then with that, I want you to slowly, slowly pull your hands apart and see if you feel anything. Do you feel anything going between your hands? Do it one more time. And then pull it apart. Some people will feel heat. Some people will feel strands, kind of like taffy. There's an energy that's present there. So now you know that you can do this with yourself. If your animal happens to be near you, then you can practice with your animal, and I'll show you what to do. But if not, you can do it right over your arm. And what I'd like you to do is to start on the back of the neck of your animal, going along the spine, and very, very slowly go across. We can do that on our own arms. And see if you can feel. Now hold your hands maybe about 1 inch or 2 inches above the body, so don't touch the body. Come right across and feel what you're feeling. And if you go really slowly, you get a sense that there are some places that may feel warmer than other places, some places that feel like there's a different integrity, a different intensity. So I'd like you to see what we're looking at. We're looking at, and I realize that you can't see what I'm pointing to, but it's on the picture right now. There are energy fields that surround us and surround our animals. Some people call them chakras, some people call them energy fields. And what we're doing as we pass our hands along the neck and back above the animal is we are accessing the different energy fields. And all of these energy fields have emotions, spirits, thoughts, and physical aspects to them. Where you feel changes, where you feel transitions that just feel different, this is a potential place of blockage in the energy fields of that animal or in the energy field of you. We as holistic practitioners believe that all changes occur or start occurring in the energy field and work their way slowly to and through the body. So a physical problem doesn't necessarily start with something in your stomach, but it may start in the energy field of thoughts above your third energy field. So in doing this easy exercise of just passing your hands along the spine, above the spine of your animal, you can start to smooth and gather the energy and smooth everything out to help restore balance. So some of my goals today, which may be a little bit overly estimated, things to do, as well as some inspiration. So this is the first one, is scanning. You can tell if something's going on with your animal. When you're doing the scan, if they turn around and if they give you a look when you reach a certain place, if their skin ripples, if they start talking or yawning. And I use this with all of my patients and with my own animals. So holistic energy healing can be used first just helping the energy around the body. And I wanted to share with you some things that I do in my practice. So the energy can be used to help seniors. It can be used to help young animals with hereditary issues, rescued animals, issues with trauma and pain, helping after surgery. It will affect the immune, the endocrine systems, the respiratory systems, urinary, digestive, all of the muscular joints. And we use holistic energy healing where Western medicine has done what it's offered, but there's still issues. We look at the whole individual and we look at them within their family and physical environment and look to strive for balance. So part of an intake exam has to do with what are the living conditions? Where does your animal like to hang out? Does your animal like to be warm? Does your animal like to be cool? And we do this in order to set up a pattern and to figure out how to balance things. So I wanted to share with you some of my patients. This is Jippy, who's the dog, and the kitty is Ivy, and there's their person in the middle. And their person is a wonderful dog walker here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And doesn't it look like the animals really love her? They're devoted to her, and she's devoted to them. So Jippy is a senior dog, and not only was he devoted to his person, but he would go on walks with the other dogs and keep them totally in line. And he would alert the person if there were a problem with the rest of the pack. He's a very interesting character. And then he developed some heart issues. And my friend was concerned about bringing him in because he got so upset whenever he was around the veterinary clinic. So what we learned to do with each other is we learned to trust, to touch, and we used acupressure and qigong energy. Qigong energy is exactly what we did with the scanning. Qigong energy means energy work, or work that you do with energy that you can do with your hands or calling in from outside the universe. Ivy is a senior cat, and she held everything together. She holds everything together. She'll be 19 this month. And she has a lot of arthritis pain. And Ivy is very responsive to acupuncture, qigong, and homeopathy. So energy medicines take time, but you establish a trust and a communication, you minimize fear, and you usually help relaxation. And as my trainer at the gym says, relaxation is the new strength. This is Kasha, and Kasha is a 13-year-old female Spayed Shepherd mixed dog. And she came to me because she had had trauma, and then the trauma progressed. What happened was a year or so ago, when she jumped into the car, she missed the floorboard and she smacked against her belly against the floorboard of the car, and she didn't make the seat. She got tremendous pain and swelling. The person brought her to the veterinarian, and they took x-rays and MRIs and CAT scans and all of the things. She seemed fine except for the contusions. They treated her for pain, and they treated her for inflammation. And she seemed okay, but she was very stiff after that. Months later, Kasha developed pancreatitis. Now, where's your pancreas? Your pancreas, I can't stand up unless you don't see my face. Your pancreas is right here. It's on the right side. Right where she hit herself jumping into the car, she now developed a problem with her organ systems. Now, the Western veterinarian said, oh no, that had nothing to do with it. But as a holistic practitioner, I felt we really needed to take that into account. So she had gone through a year of pain and continued stiffness, and pancreatitis that came and went. When her person brought her in, who's also a licensed acupuncturist, we were able to utilize Qigong energy with, I guess, balancing or bringing back into balance her energy body and her physical body. We also use some homeopathy and sound therapy. The reason I wanted to show you Kasha was to tell you that Western medicine did what it did, but it wasn't exactly what she needed. We needed something on a different level. And holistic medicine approaches things on all of the levels, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the behavioral. I treat horses a lot. And I was at a barn one day, and a horse received a vaccination for rabies on the side of the neck. Everything was fine. The regular veterinarian left. I call them RVs, real vets. And he left, and everything was fine. And I was still at the barn with my horse. And all of a sudden, the person who had the horse with the vaccine comes over and she says, you have to come over because my horse looks like he's going to collapse. This was 2 hours later, and the horse was sweating. He was running 105 fever. His eyes were disoriented, and he couldn't move. He was totally paralyzed. Now, in Western medicine, usually anaphylactic reactions happen with not being able to breathe and collapse like that. But this was a different kind of reaction. What we used is we used acupuncture. We used acupuncture at the elbows to relieve the heat and toxins, and at the base of the neck, also behind his stifles. And we used a homeopathic preparation called belladonna, which we used 2 doses 20 minutes apart. And within half an hour to 40 minutes, the horse was back to normal. So holistic energy medicine works really quickly, especially in acute situations where there's no Western medicine available. And I wanted to show you Dash. Dash is a 1.5-year-old neutered male Lab-Formosan mountain dog he was adopted from Taipei. And he came over. He's got some wonderful parents here, and he has a skin problem. And he's itching all the time, and he gets bald where he itches. He's got a lot of food allergies and will develop diarrhea. He has a special diet now, and the diet is sometimes beef, sometimes pork, sometimes salmon, but mostly meat and yak milk. So I don't know where she gets the yak milk, but he really enjoys it. And she brought him in because he's very shy and he barks. And he barks with other dogs who are on the leash, or he runs away. And they didn't know what to do. They didn't want to give him any psychotropic drugs, but they didn't know how to bring him out. When I examined Dash, what we did was I did my scanning, and what I noticed was that his energy bodies were actually in front of his physical body. You could actually feel a huge amount of energy in front of where he was, and then part of it in his head and neck, and then nothing in the middle to the lower part of his body. So we coaxed the energy back in, literally coaxed it back in. And it brought him back into the present. And he was much less shy. The people told me that immediately he was a different dog. And he was able to then balance himself and work with his people here. So holistic energy medicine saved the day. I was very happy. And by the way, when we use holistic medicine, when we use holistic healing, we're utilizing not only our own energy, but we're accessing the energy of the universe. So it's always done with love, and it's done with a universal force. Lastly, I wanted to tell you about Missy, who's a spayed domestic, beautiful short-hair cat who has chronic sinus problems. She came to me with eye discharge, nose snuffles, thick snot, and a lot of headaches. And Missy was the first cat who showed me she loved acupuncture, and I could do needles on her face. She would come in and she would sit on the towel, and I would actually put tiny little needles on both sides of her eyes, under her eyes, on the side of her nose, behind her ears, and she totally loved it. As an aside, I wanted to let you know that both acupuncture and acupressure are recognized by the American Veterinary Medical Association as a valid treatment modality. It's also recognized by most insurance companies for your animals. So I suggest that if you get insurance for your animal, you should check into the holistic addendums. You'll have to get an added policy that's not that much money, but they will cover acupuncture treatments if you need to bring your animal in. And acupuncture is a network of energy that runs through your body. And it's accessed from the surface areas, and it can travel through muscles and attach to the internal organ systems. It can be used to relieve pain and inflammation and to support an organ. Acupuncture is one of the best things to use for chronic renal problems. Older cats, older dogs whose kidneys are failing, the acupuncture helps increase their lifespan and a quality of life. So I really suggest that you seek that out if you have animals with renal problems. And I wanted to show you, this comes from my book, and it's a picture of the meridians. And the meridians are energy highways that go near the surface of the body, just under the surface in the subcutaneous area, and they travel all across the body. The old stories go, the ancients said that meridians were developed by monks through meditation, and they found the energy highways by meditating, and this was for humans. The Chinese, for the last thousands of years, who have been using acupuncture on mostly large animals, didn't believe that animals had meridians, but instead they believed that they had specific points and named these points in order for the function of what they did. Back in the year 2000, 1999 or 2000, I was teaching actually in China. And with that, there was a project that was talked about where they did an experiment to show that acupuncture meridians did exist in sheep. And they did that through a sound wave therapy called echograms. And they actually showed that the meridians exist in animals. And since then, for the last 16, 17 years, in China, they're also using acupuncture through meridians in animals. So again, meridians are energy highways that you can actually find with a Geiger counter kind of thing, because acupuncture points and energy lines have a different electrical potential than the surrounding tissue. And I wanted to show you an emergency resuscitation point, because remember, I wanted to give you some practical things to go away with after this talk. So the emergency resuscitation point is called governing vessel 26. And right below your nose to above your top lip, there's a line with an indentation there. And about halfway to 2/3, there's a point. And you can see the point on Bouffard. And Bouffard is a wonderful little kitty patient who I have. And we've used that point with the tip of your finger or the tip of a ballpoint pen cover or something that you can peck at that point. And you use it in shock. We've used it in surgery rooms where the animal was too deep under the anesthesia. We were able to revive them from anesthesia. And it's an excellent point to be able to use if you're on your way to the vet and your animal is passing out. So governing vessel 26 between the nose and the upper lip. So the first 2 points, the scanning for the energy and the emergency resuscitation points. The second acupressure point that I'd like to call to your attention is behind the knees in the back legs. Those of you who have horses know that they call the knees the front ankles. But this is the knees, like we have knees on the hind end of the body, behind the kneecaps. And the musculature along the back has long lines that go across the back, and then there will be energy lines that come down through the back legs. Using an acupressure point behind the kneecap, you can actually focus energy there to bring pain and inflammation down from the back, through the back legs, and out the body. So this is an acupoint that moves energy and blood flow down the spine. It's an excellent point to help relieve pain, especially if there's hip arthritis, if there's low back pain, or even knee pain. So the resuscitation point and the back pain point behind the knees. How are we doing, everybody? You okay? It's a lot of information, not enough information. We'll continue on. Take a breath. So I wanted to talk next about herbs, because as part of our modalities, we use herbs, and herbs have 1,000 years of history. They're plant and mineral origins. They can be wildcrafted or farmed. You always want to check the source of your herbs. You want to hope that they're sustainably harvested, and you want to make sure there's no heavy metals or pesticides. Most of the herbal products in this country, and also that come from Australia, New Zealand, and from Europe, have been tested for pesticides and heavy metals. So if you're concerned about where the herbs come from, check with that company that you're ordering from. And you can also check with the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association that has a Botanical Medicine Association aspect. So herbs, it's very funny. One of the oldest stories comes from animals leading the way, of course. So horses led the way in ancient China. So there's an old story that there was a general with his men who were on one of these battle things, and they got stuck in an area, and they were stuck there for several months. And during this time, they couldn't get away, and they had little supplies, and the men started to develop blood in the urine. It was painful. Some of the men actually died from it. So it was some kind of infection that was going on. The groom for the horses noticed that the horses were eating a plant that was near the streams that were coming by, and he noticed that the horses didn't have any blood. So he picked up some of these plants. He brought it to the general. He said, I think that we can use this as a plant for the men to drink, make a tea out of it, make an herbal decoction out of it, and actually the men can drink it, and maybe we can get rid of their blood in the urine. And sure enough, it worked. So this was called Plantago major, or Asiatic plantain, and it's used through today to decrease inflammation, especially in the urinary tract and in the digestive tract. Medicinal mushrooms are another type of herb that we use, and medicinal mushrooms have a lot of research behind them. Medicinal mushrooms, as many of you may know, are an integral part of cancer therapy. The research was started first in Japan, and then in China, and then Europe, and finally here. There's a great website that's run by a man called Dr. Paul Stamets, and he does a lot of research about medicinal mushrooms. You might want to check it out. As part of the cancer therapies, we've been finding that the turkey tail, which is Trametes versicolor, is excellent in helping breast cancer. I use turkey tail in different sarcomas in some of my patients, and also with leukemias. So turkey tail really helps to clear the system and help the lymphatics and move the blood. What medicinal mushrooms have is they enhance and balance the immune system. They have something called natural killer cell immunity. So they have the ability, when it's ingested, to stimulate a T cell in the body, which is one of your white blood cells that goes after the cancer cells. And it actually can eat them up and kill them and remove them from the bloodstream. So medicinal mushrooms are really good for tumors that grow above the body. And there's a stem, and the medicinal mushrooms will come around and literally be able to pull that tumor off. Not in all cases, but I definitely use medicinal mushrooms along with chemotherapy, or sometimes if the animal cannot do chemotherapy, we use that along with holistic medicine in general. Another herb that I'd like to mention is calendula. How many of you use calendula? I can't see any hands. So calendula is excellent for wounds and for abrasions, for barbed wire cuts, for bites, for dry hot spots. So we're looking again about which things you can take away from this talk. We can look at herbs such as medicinal mushrooms, calendula, or plantain. We can look at the acupuncture points behind the knees for pain, the resuscitation points between the nose and the lip, and also the Qigong scanning for smoothing the energy. I'm just reminding you of these things because I know that the more you hear them, the more you'll use them. And I next wanted to just mention homeopathy. So where herbs have thousands of years of experience, homeopathy has hundreds of years of experience. Homeopathy has a longer history than antibiotics. And homeopathy is a natural pharmaceutical science that was brought to modern life by a German physician called Samuel Hahnemann during the late 1800s in Europe. And let me say that Herbs use specific substances similar to antibiotics, so you can weigh it in milligrams or in milliliters or in pounds or ounces. But homeopathy is different. Homeopathy uses very minute doses of natural substances that you take and you dilute and shake in water. So you take a substance, you put a small amount of substance, and this is done scientifically as far as quantities. Let's say you put 1 milliliter of a substance into a 10 milliliter glass, and then you shake it, and you shake it against your hand, and you liberate particles from that water. It's this liberation of energy from the natural substance that is diluted serially along 3, 4, 5, 10, 100 times that literally creates the healing that we use with homeopathy. So what homeopathy does is it's the energy from a substance that's been diluted and shaken, and that energy sets up a resonance, sets up a vibration. Our bodies, our animal bodies, are 75% or more water. So we have a lot of wave action that goes in our body. It resonates, it vibrates. Homeopathy hooks into that resonance and restores balance by matching its energy with what's going on in the body. I'm sure that you've all heard about ARNICA, and ARNICA is used for trauma. It's used for inflammatory relief, inflammation relief. So ARNICA, Montana, the way homeopathy comes is instead of milligrams, they use a 30C, numbers with a C or an X after them. And what that means is it refers to how dilute it is and how many times it was shaken. The higher the number, the more potent, but also the less physical substance and the more energetic substance. So arnica is used for bruising, for strains, for pains, for collisions, for those when you're hit by a car, when you fall, and all of a sudden things are starting to get black and blue and swell. Arnica is excellent. I keep arnica in the clinic for anybody who's gotten a bite wound, because you can start taking arnica immediately before any kind of infection happens. And of course, you use the Western medicine to double up on it, but very often you don't even need that. Another homeopathic I'd like to mention in passing is Nux vomica. And Nux vomica is good for relieving nausea and clearing hangovers. So if any of your cats, dogs, or horses go out on the town and drink too many beers or glasses of wine, Nux vomica is very good. So I'd like to take a breath now and just check in and see what kind of time we have. Oh, great. Good. I wanted to mention a few more things. And what I want you to look at right now is sound therapy. So these are a lot of different things, and I'm giving you a potpourri of what is available and how you can expand your understanding and your love and your healing capabilities with the animals. There are a lot of veterinarians that you can locate through the American Veterinary Medical Holistic Association, also through the Chi Institute in Florida, also through the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society, the American Veterinary Homeopathy Society. So there are a lot of different guilds and collectives that serve these types of healing modalities, in addition to what you can do on your own. I wanted to mention sound therapy, firstly because I love sound. I'm a musician, and music and sound resonates in the airwaves. There's a resonance, again, between the sounds and the cells of our body. I studied with the Tamado Academy with Dr. Fabien Maman, and he set a series of tuning forks that are associated with the meridian system in traditional Chinese medicine. The tuning forks can also be associated with chakra systems. There are planetary forks. There are Tibetan bowls and crystal bowls. Anything that you can make sounds with, chanting, something that comes from inside you, will create a resonance. Sometimes in order to settle an animal in my office, I will start, and I will find which resonance that animal likes. And then all of us will start singing it in the room to help calm the animal down. It's a very good thing to use. So we can balance the organ systems, the emotional, mental, and spiritual states using sound. And I wanted to just give you a little bit of an idea. And of course, this cat is black on a red chair. You can see my yellow shirt better than anything. But this is a 10-year-old female cat who has hyperthyroid. And she was on medication, but she could never relax. The only time she could relax was when she would come to the clinic and either lay on this red chair for a while. And we used a tuning fork above her body. So what I'd like you to notice is she's lying still there. And we're just running the tuning fork again like the scanning. She lifts her head, and now she just relaxes and she stretches out. This cat loved tuning fork therapy. So we can use the tuning fork depending upon what's going on above the body or on specific acupoints in the body. Color therapy is something else that we use. And colors give you physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual support. How many of you like bright colors? How many of you like dark colors? I taught in Japan for a while, and I noticed that everybody was wearing a dark color. And I always come with all of my bright colors and my either stark blonde hair or red hair, depends on what I feel like. And everybody was wearing dark colors. So I asked them, I said, why are you wearing dark colors? And they said, well, everybody else does. But then they said that their islands were very crowded. And they felt that if you wore dark colors, that you subdued the energy down. I also feel that you pull energy in with a darker color, where you pull energy out with vibrational colors, with, brighter colors. Now, cats and dogs don't perceive color the same way we do, but there's a response to the resonance of the color. And each color will produce a certain vibration to them. So we'll use color therapy to activate energy or to relieve pain or to calm. So if I have a very anxious animal, I will put them on a blue towel or a dark green towel to help bring the energy down. If I have an animal that needs energy and is very sedate, I will use a pink or an orange to lift it up. I wanted to just touch, before we go to the Q&A part, to a harmony in the environment and nutrition. We all know we are what we eat. And especially if we go out to eat or go and get takeaway or takeout, how many places use a microwave to heat the food or to cook the food? Microwaves jumble so much of the energy, so that sometimes if we eat microwaved food, we can take it in and become allergic to the food particles because we don't recognize them as what they are. They're in a jumble. So I say be a little bit aware and wary when you're eating microwave food. But I wanted to tell you that for your animals, all commercial foods are not created equal, as you must know, not only by price, but by ingredients. So I have my clients always check the labels and the manufacturing, where it's manufactured and where it's sourced. If you're a dog person, a very good publication to subscribe to is the Whole Dog Journal. And that Whole Dog Journal is very helpful for which foods are best for your animal. The first ingredient on all of the foods needs to be a protein source. It needs to be a meat, fish, poultry, and not a byproduct and not a meal. MEAL. It has to be the meat itself. So it has to say whole chicken or whole beef or just beef or pork or whatever. Also, I wanted to let you know that you may have noticed, but a lot of the commercial foods in the upper end are starting to come in pouches rather than cans. And one of the reasons for that is that many of the cans have BPA, which is an additive that's been shown to produce cancer. So we like to get away from that, and sometimes by using the pouches, it's a good idea. But we're looking also at raw food, fresh food, cooked food, as well as the commercial foods. And we need to look at our animal because not every animal needs the same type of food. In traditional Chinese food therapy, we categorize foods by the way it makes us feel. So we look at if the food is cool or warm, if it's moistening or drying, if it makes you calm or invigorates you. And we balance issues with food sources. So before we leave the end of the presentation, I'd like you to look at chicken or fish. Now, I like chickens, and I like chickens. I like seeing them on a farm walking around, and you see that they always move really fast. And if they get excited, they're beep, 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 and they're very high and hyper and blah, 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 blah. So if you have an animal who is already maybe chicken's not the best kind of food source to give him because that may enhance the amping up. On the other hand, fish swim and navigate water. So I look at where the animal lives and what are the qualities of that animal. And then I try to match that or balance that with your animal friends. And you can do a lot of that. And lastly, I'd like to mention, if you haven't heard of it, and most of you who are listening in already know this, this is about the 5-flower formula, the rescue remedy. And the rescue remedy is a flower essence made by Bach. And also it's called calming essence. It's available by a lot of different companies these days. I still use the Bach flower itself. And it's one of the best things to utilize if there's trauma or if there's shock. It comes in a spray you can spray around. It comes in a cream that you can put on the head or the ears. You can put it on the mouth. There are drops. There's animal drops that are in glycerite that you can put directly in the mouth, or you can use the alcohol drops and just put 1 or 2 drops in the water bowl for your animals. It's really good for helping to calm the situation and to balance your animal. So I'd like to stop here and call Lisa and Joan again and see if it's time for any Q&As or if there's anything that you'd like to bring up that I can answer for you. And to just tell you this is fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much for presenting this, Cheryl. This was so interesting. I really appreciate it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
And what we'll do now is we're going to switch the format a little bit so that if anyone has a question, you can type it into the chat box, and then Sally will read it out, and we'll still have Cheryl to answer it. So if you have a question, feel free to go ahead and type it right in the chat box, and then we'll be able to hear an answer from Cheryl.
Okay, I have the first question.
Thank you.
This is from Diane Blake, and she says, when doing energy work on an animal, sometimes they will turn their head and look at where your hand is above them. Is this okay? I thought maybe it meant they didn't like it.
Oh, I think it's okay. I think that it means that you've made a connection. So if they turn their head and look at you and then go, or ha, ha, then maybe they don't like it. But usually it just means, oh, hello, tell me what's happening.
Thank you,
So
Cheryl.
I don't think there's an issue with that at all.
Perfect. Any other questions, anyone? That was our only one we've had come in so far. Diane just said to say thank you. It did seem like they liked it. She wanted to check.
Oh, good.
So.
Oh, good. So, Joan, do you have anything, or Lisa?
Well, I would like to just thank you so much for sharing all this information. You went into some great detail, and I feel as though I have some wonderful new skills to share with my kitties. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, good. Are you a cat person then?
I am.
And what are your cats' names?
Oh boy. Well, I've got Chico and Rocco and Munchie.
And how did you decide on those names?
Well, that's a good question. I think let's see. I think it was intuition, really.
That's exactly it. So, does Munchie like to eat?
Oh, yes. Munchie, she's a little sneaky, and what she likes to do, ever since she was a little tiny kitten, she would just sneak up next to somebody and start to eat some of their food. So she became Munchie.
What I find is that we call the animals, they literally tell us what their names are by their actions. And sometimes we name them because we want a certain action from them. So I had a client who kept bringing a cat in who would get into fights. And I said, what's his name? She says, Bandit. I said, well, what did you expect with calling him Bandit? So we actually changed his name, and he got into less fights. So the reason I asked you about your cat's names is we find that we know intuitively, you're right on, that the animal wants to be called a certain thing because it's in their nature. And that's one of the reasons we love animals, because they're usually very transparent, much more transparent than we are.
Very true. I have a couple more questions come through. So I'm not sure who this is from because it doesn't have a name, but they said, what would you recommend for arthritis in my dog's friend's paw? I think it might be my friend's dog.
In the paw.
Yeah, in a paw, okay. In a dog, yeah.
Okay. The first thing is fish oil. I really like the fish oils because of their anti-inflammatories, omega-3s. And the very good product is made by Nordic Naturals, which is fish oil for pets, and it has sardine and anchovy oil. The other thing that I would recommend is glucosamine, chondroitin, and MSM combination. And these are nutraceuticals or nutritional supplements that will help decrease the inflammation by decreasing the amount of oxidants. So they're considered antioxidants, which are they're molecules that will create inflammation in the joint itself. So chondroitin, MSM, and glucosamine are really good. The fish oils are good. Vitamin C is good. And as an herbal, turmeric. So turmeric is really, really helpful.
Great, thank you. And then Susan Katroba says, do you have any suggestions on how to assist a cat to a raw diet?
Yes, first the cat really needs to want it. I'm curious if the cat is an indoor-outdoor cat, because very often if they're hunting, they will accept the raw diet easier than if they're not hunters. Cats are really funny because cats, it seems, have decided what they're eating by the time they're 3 or 4 weeks old. And after that, it's an uphill battle. And so I have a cat who came from the Tenderloin in San Francisco, and he grew up on pizza crust. And he's had GI issues for a really long time, but I can't get him to eat any raw food. So the bottom line is, see if you can get your cat to hunt and introduce your cat to food on the move before you introduce the raw food.
Great, thank you. And then we have a question from Diane Blake, who says, do dogs sometimes have reactions to rabies vaccines?
Yes, they do.
For example, being subdued. And she said, one dog I knew became agitated afterwards. And what would you recommend?
Yes. Animals in general may have vaccine reactions. Some don't have it, but some will show emotional things. Some will show fever. Some will show ear infections that come up, but maybe a week later. What happens with the vaccine is that it stimulates and accesses your immune system. So if there's something in the adjuvant or in the fluid that the vaccine is made from, and it's an irritant to your animal's body. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn that phone off. If you have an animal who's allergic to some of those adjuvants, then you can get an allergic reaction. The thing that I would recommend is wait about 3 or 4 hours. If you see any kinds of issues at all, whether it's emotional or physical, you can use a homeopathic dose of something called Nux vomica, which I mentioned in the presentation. So Nux vomica 30C, 1 or 2 of the little ball pellets, and do it one time and see if it changes the situation. Obviously, if it's an anaphylactic reaction, you need to go back to your veterinarian for steroids or antihistamines.
Great, thank you. That was Claire, by the way, who are from Australia, who asked about the arthritis, and she said to say thank you so much for the recommendations. She's really enjoyed your presentation.
So great. Good. And Claire, there are some wonderful holistic veterinarians in Australia, and I would look them up if I were you. Okay. Because acupuncture is really good for arthritis.
I'd like to ask one other little question just regarding if your animal has a cold. Is there anything that you might recommend to improve their immune system? Actually, Chico has a little cold right now, so I was just wondering if there's something that you might recommend.
Yes, I like Echinacea for kids, and it's a liquid glycerite, and you can put some in the water, just a few drops in the water. Also, I would increase the vitamin C. You want to use something like a sodium ascorbate. You don't want to use a citrate because that will increase urine crystals. So an ascorbate that is a sodium ascorbate. There's a product called Mega C that's very helpful, and those will help the immune system. The other thing is to do acupressure, and do acupressure in between the dew claw and the paw and the end of the elbow crease.
Fabulous. I'm going to try these.
Good.
Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. And Sally, I wonder if
we have a couple more.
Okay, great.
I think Joan's got one coming by phone, so I'll hold for that. I just got a comment from a lady called Nikki, who just said to say thank you so much. She's loving learning all about this as she's been on her own spiritual journey, and she's seeing how many things translate from humans to animals, and she just finds that amazing. So thank you.
Oh, good. I think so too.
And then I have a question from Marco, who says, how to professionally conjugate to Western countries knowledge, such as Qigong for animals, Reiki for animals, and similar healing practices if you're not a vet?
You need to work with a veterinarian. So what happens is you can do things without charging. I'm not sure I understood the question. The question seems to me, can you practice these modalities if you're not a vet?
I think so, yes. And it's if you're not a vet, how you would work around the legalities as how I'm reading it.
Yes, you need to be under the auspices of a veterinarian, or to get an actual certificate from a program, and then again work with someone who's licensed. But legally, that's the way you do it. You have to be sponsored by somebody.
And then I have a lady called Suzanne who said, my cat has lost a lot of hair near her tail. She's been to the vet and she doesn't have mites or fleas or anything they could find to cause it. She gives her food that doesn't have grain in it, and she is somewhat an anxious cat, but she works with her a lot on that, and she's a psychologist. The lady owner is a psychologist. Do you have any ideas?
Yes, it's probably something about the circulation going through the body. If it's down at the tail base, it may have to do with the anal glands or the end of the colon. So there may be something in the digestive system. I would recommend to keep doing the scanning that I started the presentation with, to be able to smooth the energy there, and to also use the acupressure behind the knees. When they're itching there, there's an area of blockage, whether that blockage is from an anal gland, the urinary tract, or the end of the digestive tract is hard. It could also be a blockage in the back itself, in the spine. So doing massage along the spine would be very helpful.
Great, thank you. And we had a question from somebody if we get a copy of the presentation, and I believe it's going to be uploaded onto the IDA website page for the Hopes for Animals Summit. Lisa, is that correct?
Yes, we'll have the replay links for this. Will be on the we have a YouTube channel that will be specific for the Hope for Animals Summit, and the advocacy kits are actually already uploaded onto our website. So the web page, I'll go ahead and type it in, but it's www.idausa.org/Hope Summit.
Right, thank you, Lisa. Okay, we have another question. I think this is our last one, I think, but you never know. So we have a lady, Katie, who's doing energy medicine on a cat with kidney issues, but the vet has prescribed Hill's KD for kidney issues, and they're asking if there's a better alternative for low protein. Is there a better food? And what are the best holistic alternatives for kidney issues?
Okay. No aspersion on Hills, but they're not my favorite. What I find is acupuncture and acupressure for kidney issues, along with an herb called 6 flavor herbs. It's a Chinese herb that's called Lu Wei Di Huang Wan. But if you look it up as 6 flavor tea, you can find it, which is helpful for renal failure or, kidneys that are going downhill. I find that using the herb and acupuncture or acupressure above the kidneys, and if you have my book, the Four Paws book, you can actually see specific acupressure points to use for kidney issues. As far as the diet, I find that using good source protein as compared to low protein, because there's a lot of discussion right now as far as what's the best for kidneys. Kidneys do have to transmit and transform the protein, but if it's high quality protein like hard-boiled egg, like boiled chicken, like a lot of my kitties who are in my practice, they like eating raw tuna. Now, these are things that in Western practice you go, oh no. But if you do it along with acupuncture, along with the herbs and energy medicine in general, it's really helpful. So I would say if you're using a commercial diet, and Hills will probably kill me, I'd say try the Royal Canin brand as compared to the Hills because it's more palatable. But to mix that with some fresh protein source like hard-boiled egg, and you can also mix that with mashed chickpeas or mashed lentils, that will decrease the protein, increase the good starches, but enable the protein to be absorbed.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I think there's one thing. I know you have a gift, but maybe you could mention that you would you offered for people.
Yes.
And Joan also has a question. So I don't know if you want to do Joan first and then the gift, or vice versa.
Well, let me just talk about the gift first. And on my website, you can see a picture. I have a poster that shows the meridians of the cat and the dog. These are the energy lines that the acupuncture points are found along. And the first 20 people who email me at Dr. Schwartz at drcherylschwartz.com, I will send you a free poster.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cheryl. So we have 2 more questions, one from Joan and one from another person whose name I can't see. But Joan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I went ahead and popped back up on a video. And I just wanted to say that I wanted to know where to get that poster because, as you know, I love your book. So now I know. So I have a question about all the radiation from Fukushima and all of the sorts of things that we're feeding our cats. Should they all be on nascent iodine at this point? Because of the so much of the seafood we're feeding?
Yes, the seafood. And there's also a product that's a brown seaweed formula that was made in response to the Chernobyl incident for the radiation. So the seaweeds that are from the very north seem to be fairly clear of the radiation, and at least at this point. And yes, I do think that we should supplement the cats with it, the animals with it, and us too.
Yeah. What is the product from the one that they made in response to Chernobyl so that we can put it in the
It's
chat
called
box?
Metafilm or Metaform. I will call Lisa later and tell her.
Okay.
Great. We can add it to the information after the call.
Okay.
Okay, so one more question. We have a person who says, I'm doing
Thank
Reiki.
you.
You're welcome.
I'm doing Reiki on a flop-eared rabbit. He turns his head rotating to the right like he has a behavioral tic. He does this quite often during the day. It has helped somewhat doing Reiki. Is there anything you can suggest? He recently just lost his mate.
Yeah. It's also when they do that turning, I find there's a lot of emotional and mental and spiritual agitation going on. And there's a block between the left side and the right side, between each side of the body. One side will regulate the energy, one side regulates the blood flow. And there's a block in between. So if he's recently lost his mate, you might try a homeopathic remedy called Ignatia Imara. That's Ignatia, IGNA-T for Tom, IA, Ignatia Imara, 30C, 1 or 2 doses. So you can take one of the pellets and put it in some water, stir it around, and then give your rabbit some droppers full of that water dilution, and that would be helpful. With the Reiki, you might also want to just look at the base of the spine and the top of the head and see if you can feel any kinds of change between the left and the right side and try to balance it that way. And if those things don't work, please look for an acupuncturist in your area and see if they can figure out anything. And thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. That's all the questions I have. Just a couple of people commented about how useful the information was on the kidney discussion that you had. Because they've had animals with kidney failures that they didn't know about some of these resources, so they know for future. And
yeah. Oh, good.
You could do a book just on kidneys.
Okay, I'll add it to my list.
Well, we are so delighted to have you with us today and for you to kick off our Hope Summit. This is such a wonderful beginning, full of hope and all these excellent remedies. So thank you very much, Cheryl, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And it was my pleasure because I love the animals and they love me back and have given me so much. Anything I can do in return is wonderful. And I wish you the best for the rest of the summit. I'll be listening in.
Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And speaking of the summit, our next speaker coming up this Thursday at 1 o'clock is going to be Ellie Lax. She's the founder of Gentle Barn. So hopefully you'll be able to tune in. She also does some healing modalities with the animals there at the sanctuary. So we'll hear more from her. Stay tuned. And for everyone who's participating, we will be sending a replay link for this webinar as well, and it will be posted on that Hope Summit page on our website. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and thanks again, Cheryl, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again on Thursday.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.